Greetings, everyone. So this video is kind of a current events video. It's an honest thoughts, if you will. And the topic, I'm sure that we're all familiar with the topic of cancel culture. And I'm sure that there are quite a few of us who are pretty annoyed with it. And honestly, I gotta say that I'm gonna give my thoughts on it as far as how it relates to Star Wars, particularly. That's kind of the impetus of it, and just how I feel about it in general. And I could very well be taking a risk by making this video, because big tech, they tend to shadow ban people of particularly of conservative thought, and I don't hide the fact that I'm conservative, and I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian either. So who knows? I guess at the worst, YouTube could just shut me down and say you can't make videos anymore, and then I kind of lose my hobby. But well, in any case, so here we go. But I feel it's important for me to articulate my thoughts to you, and for us to discuss it, for us to talk about this. So, cancel culture, it seemed like it really sharpened its teeth, if you will, with things like taking down of statues, erasing history, smearing political opponents. That really seemed to be where cancel culture really started, within the last year or two. And now it affects Star Wars. Is nothing sacred. Well, okay, Star Wars isn't sacred either, but still. I guess we had kind of hoped that it would pass by Star Wars, but it didn't, and now I kind of feel that, let's talk about this. But before I really get into it now, I do want to dedicate this video to the late Rush Limbaugh. I am a student of the Limbaugh Institute of Advanced Conservative Studies, as he would say. Rush Limbaugh believed in Jesus Christ as his Lord and Savior, and he was more open about his faith within the last year as well. He's in heaven now. He died February 18th, I think it was. It was a Wednesday within this month here. And his voice lives on. His voice lives on. His radio station isn't going anywhere. Those who have been filling in for him have carried the torch for him, and they are going to continue to review the lessons that he taught. And his voice continues to teach us and how to deal with and combat harmful political ideologies and reaffirm the goodness of Americanism, because it's a good thing to be an American, and it's a lot of people are being told that it's not. So reaffirming the goodness of Americanism, of God and country. And so I wish that we could have heard him speak about all this cancel culture, but he became too ill to stay on the program before all of this happened. And Gina Carano gets canceled, and then, so we aren't able to really hear about that. I mean, we kind of did a little bit, but I would have liked to have heard his take on it. But so this is Rush Mega Dittos. This one's for you. Now, as far as Star Wars, I made a video, I don't know, what was it, a year and a half ago or something like that? I don't remember. I made a video before about how I was okay with how Disney was handling Star Wars at the time. I think it was 2018, summer of 2018. I liked the new movies that there were. It was Force Awakens, Rogue One, Last Jedi, and Solo. I liked them. I did. I'm in the crowd that liked the sequel trilogy. And I used to kind of ignore or what I said was in the video, that I could ignore sort of the behind the scenes aspect of the movie, because the things that happen behind the scene ends up making the film what it is. But then, like when things started coming out about how The Last Jedi was really such a movie in flux and how things are changing all the time, it was kind of like, well, it's not even a solid product. The concrete is barely curing before it's out in theaters, so that really kind of it kind of proves their point who's they. It proves the sequel. I don't mean to be not haters, but those who disapproved of the sequels, who didn't like them, who thought that they weren't well done, it kind of proved their point by saying no, it really wasn't even. It was like half baked, in some aspects, that it was being all changed around and such, and how it was the tone was so different from movie to movie. So I understand their arguments a lot more clearly now. But at the time, I accepted the films at face value, and I still can, to a degree. I mean, except for that kiss at the end of Rise of Skywalker, that didn't need to be there, I thought. But really, I thought that there were some neat ideas in the film. I thought that the way that they explored a couple different aspects of the Force, and I thought that there were some really neat things that did happen in there, and I did enjoy it. And if I sit down and watch it, I still enjoy it. And I still believe, as one of the main points that I made in that video was I said, I don't believe that consumers really have authority to criticize creators unless the creators can create as well. You know, it's like being a food critic when you have never worked in a kitchen before, or criticizing a filmmaker when you've never written a film, or criticizing a story when you've never written a story, criticizing a painting when you've never painted, criticizing a musician's performance when you can't play an instrument, you know, things like that. I feel that I still feel like consumers really can't criticize the work of a creator properly. They don't have the authority to do so unless they also are creators themselves. And I still hold true to that. But the behind the scenes, it's too much to ignore now. It's beyond just, oh, this is what happened and we're finding out about it now in the DVD extras. You know, it's not that. It's spilling out. It's becoming public. It's becoming a mess. It really is. I mean, I've been listening to Overlord DVD. The Quartering I've recently started listening to. RK Outpost, I've listened to a couple of their videos. It really reveals how Kathleen Kennedy was like the chancellor who's now become an emperor. The proof is in their actions, the Kennedy camp, and the woke agenda is being pushed. I can see it now. And that's a lot of, like, Overlord DVD, his biggest beef. He keeps saying how, they're pushing this woke agenda in their Star Wars merchandise and their Star Wars publicity. And you have just the general unkindness, like Pablo Hidalgo, how he was so unkind toward Star Wars Theory's reaction to Luke Skywalker's return in The Mandalorian. And there's just a lot of stuff that is really just kind of making Star Wars not fun, really. And Mandalorian is the greatest and best received product put out by Disney Star Wars, and I love it, and everybody loves it. But that is a product that is not the result or with the input of Kathleen Kennedy. That's Favreau and Filoni's doing. That's what they're doing. And she's upset that Favreau, at least according to Overlord DVD's reporting, Kathleen Kennedy is upset that Favreau's strong woman, who's Cara Dune, and Lucas and Filoni's strong woman, who's Ahsoka Tano, they're so well loved. But Kathleen Kennedy's woman, who is Rey, is not well loved. And so the Lucasfilm Civil War, which has been reported on, was started by Kathleen Kennedy, and she has used cancel culture to punish the fandom who don't accept the woke infusion into popular culture, and in particularly Star Wars. And the thing is, entertainment is supposed to be an escape from reality. It's supposed to be an escape from reality. And a person's beliefs, I feel like I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so we're talking about Gina Carano. Okay, Gina Carano was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for a lot of the fans. She had social media posts, of course, that some say are controversial. They're conservative in nature. She's a Trump supporter. She questioned the mask mandate, whether or not it was really useful. The whole Twitter pronoun scandal of not saying her, hers, and she, but saying like beep, bop, boop, or whatever, because she just wasn't going to go along. She wasn't going to be forced into, you know, bending to someone else's idea of what her Twitter profile should be or whatever, you know. And all of that. And then with the comparison that she made of the Jews being turned in by their neighbors, by their German Nazi neighbors, how she was comparing that to the climate in America, and that's what eventually got her canceled. That was like the fuel that they needed to get her canceled. And so, even just talking about cancel culture just in a general sense, a person's beliefs are really irrelevant to doing a good job. Not even in acting, I'm just talking in general now. A person's beliefs are irrelevant to doing a good job. A professional actor makes you believe the character that you're watching, despite the real person playing them. Like a nice person could play a real jerk, or a real jerk could play a real nice person. And but even regardless of who you are as a real person, that shouldn't matter when you've got a job to do. I mean, think of Mr. Rogers. He said, I like you just the way you are. I don't know if I have a good Mr. Rogers impersonation. I haven't tried that. But he says, I like you just the way you are, And the other things don't really matter, The surface things don't matter. So here's just sort of a list of some things that have gotten canceled here, at least the ones that I know of. Apparently, Rosario Dawson is in danger of getting canceled. And Chris Pratt has been canceled, apparently, because of the church that he attends, I think. The TV show Cops has been canceled because of what was happening with the sort of anti-cop, defund the police stuff that was going on. The movie Gone with the Wind got canceled because it deals with, there's, I think, slavery that's in it. I actually haven't watched the film, but I think that it's because there's slavery in it. It depicts that. Roseanne Barr got canceled for comments that she made on social media. Mrs. Buttersworth, the maple syrup, got canceled. Even though I think historically Mrs. Butterworth was somebody who actually kind of made it off really pretty well with her syrup recipe, or with her cooking skills, and she did really well for herself. Uncle Ben, remember Uncle Ben's rice? That got canceled because it makes people think of slavery in the South, I guess. Parler got canceled when it became really popular as a alternative to Facebook, who selectively censors speech that they don't appreciate or agree to. Robinhood, the stock trading app or whatever it is, they got canceled because of the GameStop caper of people who I don't remember exactly how it is, but it's these guys who figured out how to make it rich really quick. I guess pulling the same tricks or pulling similar tricks that the really rich people do, except the quote nobodies got away with it. And so it says, oh no, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to be rich like us. And so they shut them down. Woke statements on shows like Looney Tunes. Looney Tunes. There's a disclaimer on it that says, there are racial stereotypes that were wrong then and it's wrong now. Or even on Peter Pan, on some Disney Plus shows, you're going to get that disclaimer that says there were racial stereotypes that were wrong then and it's wrong now. And so we've got all these woke statements about all this stuff. The taking down and defacing of statues. Even President Lincoln, who did everything for the black community by declaring their slavery unconstitutional, the Emancipation Proclamation, right? And then BLM, who really isn't for Black Lives, but it's a Marxist organization, they, canceled President Lincoln. Henry Cavill apparently got canceled for dating Gina Carano a long time ago. This is like opposition research now. It's opposition research gone mad, just like Brett Kavanaugh. They tried to cancel him for stuff that he didn't even do 30 years ago when they were in college with witnesses who didn't even, their stories didn't match. It was just a big mess, It's all this canceling stuff going on. But Facebook and big social media platforms are not responsible for the content of its users, and so they get a pass. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on here. So again, Gina Carano is kind of like I said, the straw that broke the camel's back. For being conservative, or at least she comes out as conservative, whether or not she identifies, because again, she's admittedly a sort of political newbie. She really didn't get much into it at all. But, she supported Trump, and she questioned the COVID policies. She, didn't bow down to the LGBTQ plus's demands on people with their Twitter bio. And now even more so, there's this whole problem with Kathleen Kennedy, because according to Overlord DVD sources, allegedly Kathleen Kennedy is lashing out with ban hammers and with firings to anyone who doesn't appreciate or support her leftist, progressive, feminist agenda. Carano's social media was just really ammunition for the Kennedy group. And that's really what it is. They were looking for a way to get rid of her because of her popularity, and not like Ray or High Republic or anything like that. Oh, and that was another thing, is that High Republic apparently got drowned out by the return of Luke Skywalker and the Mandalorian. And that really upset her. Now, Gina Carano, that social post that she had about, comparing of Jews and how they were treated, she was making the comparison that the Jews weren't really just always drug out of their homes by Nazi soldiers to be, shipped off on trains to the concentration camps. They were turned in by their neighbors. And their coworkers, their colleagues. And she was comparing that to how there's a lot of partisan divide in America, even among our citizenry. The polarization has just really, really increased, the differences. Now, again, and anybody who talks Holocaust, it gets really touchy. Even though I don't know how many World War II movies have there been made that deal directly or indirectly with the Holocaust, or just Nazis in general. But, it's history. History needs to be remembered so that it can be avoided, right? That's why Churchill, or whoever it was, said, take pictures. We need to not let this happen again, so it needs to be documented. So, going back to, World War II, the 1940s, Hitler convinces German citizens that the Jews, who are, again, their neighbors, their colleagues, their co-workers, the Jews were the problem in Germany. And so they lied about and they villainized the Jews so that Nazi-sympathetic Germans were conditioned and recruited to help the Nazis oust their Jewish friends. Well, not even, they distanced themselves from it. They said, oh, well, you just stay over there, and then eventually ousting them. And if you were a German citizen who didn't goose step to the beat of the Nazis' march, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer, he didn't. He was a Christian pastor who was martyred by the Nazis for standing up to them. So if you didn't goose step to the beat of their march, you were canceled as well. So really, canceling isn't a new thing. The Nazis burned books. They burned books against of any literature that was against Nazi Germany. And today, there are stories of ratting out nonconformists, breaking COVID restrictions, too many people gathering in a place, somebody not wearing a mask, all this sort of stuff. Or people targeting conservatives like big tech or whoever, or just liberals in general, usually elitists, really, targeting conservatives with censorship or shadow banning, demonetizing. There are YouTube channels that are demonetized and shadow banned, meaning that only their subscribers can see their new videos, but it doesn't get out to new people. Selectively punishing conservatives for their use of free speech and free choice, calling conservative ideals hate speech, because we simply don't, because we say you simply can't indulge your every whim and your every ill-conceived desire. And it's not even enough for people to get fired when you're dealing with cancel culture. It's not enough to get fired, but they need to be destroyed for not conforming to the woke agenda. It's like that scene from Ocean's 11. He says, "This sort of thing used to be civilized. You'd hit a guy, he'd whack your dung, but with Benedict, but when this is all over, he better not know you're involved, not know your names, or think you're dead, 'cause he'll kill you, and then he'll go to work on you." In cancel culture, it's not enough for you to simply be canceled or fired. They have to bury you. They have to bury you so that way you will be made an object lesson to not go against the machine, to not go against the mob, really, the mafia. And truly, cancel culture is un-American. It's against the First Amendment. It's unconstitutional. It's really downright criminal. Now, I do want to make a distinction here, because sometimes as I'm trying to think up my ideas, which may be a little bit, maybe not purely great segueing, because I'm having these thoughts and I'm putting them into my little outline of stuff like that. Sometimes I play devil's advocate with myself and I say, okay, now maybe someone might have this argument, so I'm going to present one. What would be the difference between liberals canceling someone and Christians boycotting someone? Wouldn't that really just be two sides of the same coin? And I would say no. It took me a few minutes to really think why no, but here's why. When a liberal cancels something, and the elitist, when Hollywood, okay, all of that, when they cancel someone, it is always vengeful. It's vengeful, it's malicious, it's in response to someone's usually either honest opinion or maybe about, misspeaking or something like that. But they always go after them and they do their worst to shame them, to try to force them to recant, to basically tell them that they're such a horrible person. And they seek the mob on them. It's not enough to just quietly dismiss them, but they come on you like vultures. It's like Hillary, who whacks those who are going to testify against her in court. Epstein didn't kill himself. Canceling stops someone from doing what they do. It holds back their freedom, and it can threaten their livelihood, threaten their income. It stops them from being able to express themselves. It infringes upon their First Amendment rights. Now, boycotting, like for instance, there are sometimes films or TV shows that are particularly flagrant and lacking in morals, especially when there's overt sexuality and in particularly mixing that with children or, something like that. And so Christians might say, hey, there's this movie coming out. There's bad stuff in it. It's just not wholesome, and it shouldn't have even been made considering the type of content that's in it and that there's children involved. And it's something that should be avoided. It's not anything good. Now, boycotting is the right to choose what you consume, or, well, particularly it's the right to refuse a product. Okay? Because remember, on my previous video where I talked about principles of the First Amendment, at least particularly free speech, I said things like, that you can say, publish whatever you want to, but the caveats were, I don't have to listen to you. I may not even hear you at all, but I don't have to listen to you. I don't have to agree with you. And you're not free from the consequences of what you say, or you could be wrong. You must be mistaken, So you can say whatever you want to, but there are consequences to it. And people may have different responses to it. One of the responses is refusal. Okay? Now, what we don't do is we don't cancel them. We don't say, maybe we wish that they were, maybe we wish that it wasn't there, surely, because it's not wholesome, but we don't cancel them because boycotting does respect the First Amendment rights of people who are trying to pursue their life, liberty, or pursuit of happiness. It respects the rights of creators to create, but it also respects the right of consumers to refuse it. Okay? Let's put it a little bit more simply. Let's say that there's a restaurant that has rats in its kitchen. Okay? Word of it gets out. I'm not going to go there. Well, okay, in a case like that, they probably would get canceled because that's actually not good. Let's back it off a bit. Let's say that there's a restaurant and they just cook bad food. It's just not good, And you go there, you taste it, and it's like, this isn't good. It doesn't smell good. It doesn't even look good. I'm not coming back here again, okay? We're not telling them that they have to stop what they're doing. We're just saying, I'm going to take my business somewhere else, okay? So it does respect their right to do what they're doing, but it also respects my right to let me do what I want to do. So boycotting respects the rights of creators, but it signals public disapproval of the product or the service in question. Okay? That's the difference between canceling someone and boycotting someone. Okay? Boycotting is the Christian response to something that we don't agree with as far as entertainment or something like that. But we don't cancel them. Canceling them it's malicious. It's the opposite, really, of one of the core values of Christianity, at least as far as the idea of you cancel someone because they said something bad and people got offended and you just shut them down. Okay, from that aspect. Now, God grants us the freedom to make our own choices, and the Constitution affirms this. I'm going to make a real quick plug here, too. Kirk Cameron, who is from Growing Pains, okay? I never watched that, but he was in Growing Pains. He also works in a lot of Christian media, and he has been doing an American Campfire revival where he does a little campfire in his background, and he has been going through these principles of Americanism, of God and country. It's really inspiring. It really is, and I do encourage you to go and see that. I hope you've been watching that. It's on his Facebook page, Kirk Cameron, American Campfire Revival. Now, the Constitution affirms our right to make our own choices. God grants us those freedoms. So that means that we can do what we want. It doesn't mean we should do what we want. There are things that are not good for us to do, but we can do it. He grants us that freedom. Because God is not Zeus. God does not, smite. Some people have this idea that God's up in heaven waiting to just, hurl his lightning bolt at somebody who commits a sin and just destroy them, to cancel them, really. But that's not what God does. There are certain biblical circumstances where that did happen, but those were very particular circumstances. There's something very important going on at those moments. But in our age of grace that we live in today, post Jesus Christ, in the years of our Lord, God does not smite. And in the opposite, Jesus offers forgiveness. And that's a big thing. That's a driving point here. Because cancel culture tends to dig back into your history to dig up dirt to use on you. But God doesn't hold your history against you. Take these biblical characters, okay? These people. Joseph, the son of Jacob, Joseph of the 12 tribes. Joseph, he was a tactless brat. His tongue got himself into trouble. Moses was a murderer. Rahab was a prostitute. Gideon tested God. David, he was a nobody, and then he was an adulterous murderer. Solomon was indulgent in every carnal sense, got him in trouble. Matthew, one of Jesus' disciples, was a cheater. He was a tax collector. He was cheating his fellow Hebrews. So was Zacchaeus, really. Thomas was a doubter. Peter, the Apostle Peter, he was a coward. He betrayed Jesus 3 times before he was crucified. And Paul, the Apostle Paul, was a zealous killer of Christians. He believed that Christians who followed what was called the way, he believed that they needed to be destroyed. And so that's what he did. He canceled Christians. Jesus doesn't cancel people for their mistakes. He breaks their chains. And then he says, get back up. Keep going. Christianity isn't about claiming moral high ground. It's about acknowledging our failures before God and moving forward in healing with his help. Okay? You make a mistake, someone gets hurt. You acknowledge your failure before God. You admit it to him, so that way God can work on your heart and help you to move forward, and that there can be forgiveness. There can be forgiveness, reconciliation, restoration. That's the Christian way of doing it. That's God's way of doing it. The liberal elite they claim moral high ground, but it's all about optics. Because, see, they cancel people who can be blamed as problematic or immoral, even if, especially if they have something that actually can be used. Well, okay, yeah, that wasn't a very nice thing to say. So they use that as fuel to say, oh, we're the compassionate ones. We are the moral ones here, and we're shutting down people who say not nice things. And the liberals, they demand apologies, even if they're not even necessary. And they use virtue signaling to appear morally superior. But it's all fake, especially when you see what they do support and what they allow each other to say without punishment. Like feminist comedians, they say horrible things. Samantha Bee, look up what she said. It was horrible. She didn't get in trouble. Liberalism, the elites feign compassion, understanding. They feign compassion, they feign understanding, they feign the idea of social justice, but what they're really doing is they're giving blue pills to sheeple, which is people who don't know enough to think for themselves. They give blue pills to their sheeple who are plugged into their matrix. A matrix filled with agents ready to delete you when you're no longer useful. They are unforgiving. There's no mercy. There's no grace. Even the Bachelor host, I forget what his name is, but even the Bachelor host even recognized that graciousness, mercy, and understanding would promote healing. And he still got in trouble for that. Because, see, the left doesn't want healing. They want control. And some people ask, why does politics have to be part of the whole thing? Well, they kind of make it part of the whole thing. This is why politics is a big part of the issue, because, see, politics is the fleshing out of our worldview. Our worldviews are influenced by our religion, or what we worship. Religion is how we relate to whatever it is that we worship. Also, religion affects how we relate to others, and it influences what we think the world should be like. And therefore, our religion informs how we act on it, either by how we act on it. Either we force it onto others, depending on who you are, or we allow que sera, sera. What will be, will be. Okay? And thus, politics is the means of doing that, either by forcing it or not forcing it. See, politics codifies our worldview into law. I've said before, the laws of the nation reflects its values. Well, that's partly true, depending on if it's the rule of the people, as a republic should be, instead of the elites being in charge of everything and basically everything just being a sham. And see, in the case of the elite political untouchables, they are a mafia. They're separate from the common American. They gang up and they force their worldview on the citizenry. We've been seeing that. We've been seeing that more and more. And they claim to be tolerant. They claim to be tolerant and accepting of all positions, but the tolerant are the most intolerant because they silence those who don't agree with them in order to validate their fragile minds. Free choice and free speech are a threat to their power. Because, see, you either have to be in lockstep with them and agree with them on everything. You have to you have to be able to check certain boxes in order to be accepted by them, because otherwise you don't count. Like me, I'm a person who would not count because I'm a white, straight, conservative Christian male who actually knows that he's a male. Think about what Palpatine said. Remember back to your early teachings. All who gain power fear to lose it. The elite, the Twitter mob, etc., they do not represent the common American. The elite know that they have to lie and steal and cheat in order to keep their power. And they also fear when the common person leads a comfortable, successful life without aid from the elite, because then it kind of invalidates their position. You see, the socialist says, well, you need me to take care of you. The liberal says, you need me to take care of you. You can't do it by yourself. And then when a successful person comes along, particularly a successful person who's supposed to be kind of enslaved to their mindset, when they're doing a good job, they say, how dare you? Because, see, the modern leftist elitist, stick with me on this one. The modern leftist elitist is the reincarnation of the centuries-old slave driver. Because, see, by Confederate law, it was illegal to teach black slaves to read because education could empower them to eventually be free. But nowadays, the modern progressive leftist mafia, they use identity politics and disinformation to enslave people mentally and emotionally so that they can rile them up and sick them onto their next targets. And speaking of getting riled up, this is what happened to Jesus. Jesus got canceled. Jesus attacked the Jewish law experts called the Pharisees by pointing out how they were misleading the Jewish people and they were leading false lives with a dead religion. Jesus' message of salvation and the kingdom of heaven, his teachings, his miraculous signs, his soaring popularity eclipsed the Pharisees. And they were jealous. And so the Jewish leaders, the Jewish law keepers, tried to find some way to trap Jesus in a controversy. They tried to find some way to lie about him, to misconstrue him, and present him as a political threat to Rome, to whom Israel was under leash. Eventually, Jesus was betrayed by an insider, one of his disciples. He was arrested. He was placed under an illegal trial. He was beaten, scourged, and tortured. And within a week, thanks to disinformation and lies from the Pharisees, Jesus' reputation went from being the supposed deliverer of Israel to a criminal of high treason, sentenced to capital punishment. Jesus was executed on a cross of Roman design, the most painful way to die. And the human reason was that Jesus spoke against power, and he was popular to the people, and therefore, to those in power, he was a threat to be eliminated and hopefully forgotten about. Jesus was canceled. But praise God, the story doesn't end there. As we approach Easter time, we celebrate his resurrection from the dead by the power of God to prove his power over death. And that gives us, and who believe in Jesus, that gives us who believe in Jesus hope for the future. But yeah, Jesus was canceled. Cancel culture is like part of a hydra. You know what a hydra is? It's that creature with multiple heads. The number of heads may vary depending on what culture's legends you're dealing with. But these different heads are like a brain that's in a different arena of life. Okay? And cancel culture is part of this hydra. Because, see, the liberal, progressive, socialist, totalitarian, New World Order elites control these different areas of life. Or at least they have these heads working in these different areas. In politics, by attacking the First and Second Amendments, the partisan power struggle, the erosion of the justice system. They have the head in science, suppressing science for social agendas. They have a head in education. They rewrite history. They erase true heroes. They brainwash children and they teach propaganda. They have a head in journalism, obviously, with disinformation. They have a head in healthcare. You can keep your doctor. You can keep your healthcare. The COVID mandates, New York nursing homes turning into death camps. Thank you, Andrew Cuomo. Foreign relations is another place that Hydra has a head in. Billions being sent to enemy nations. Bending to communist countries. Surrendering to global environmental accords. They have a head in the economy. Shutting down American energy independence. The Great Reset. They have a head in technology. Big tech censorship, obviously. We've been seeing that in social media all over the place. The Fourth Industrial Revolution, that's something that they're pushing for. They have a head in social media, of course. The Twitter mob. Smear campaigns. Censorship. Demonetization. Shadow banning. Oh, and another one for technology. Big tech censorship. Also, big tech curating of information, right? Fact checking. Well, I guess that goes in social media too. The fact checking. Fact checking. They have a head in entertainment, easily. Pushing leftist agendas. Forcing political issues where they don't belong. Canceling actors who they believe are problematic. Or actually canceling actors who, yeah, they said something that maybe they shouldn't have, but they don't offer any forgiveness. They just cut them out. And they have a head in religion. Closing churches. Attacking conservative Bible believers. See, the First Amendment has been under attack. It's virtually dead. In all practicality, it is dead because it's being ignored. Even if it's there on paper, it's not being followed because people are getting canceled. Cancel culture feels just like what Gina Carano pointed out. It's like a field test for further suppression. If we can suppress a person's speech, if we can suppress a person's rights for good-sounding reasons, then we can just take it the next step further. It's just another step further into something bad happening. Like I said before in my previous video about what I think why I'm a Christian and what it means, part of the reason I made that video is because I don't know how much longer I'm going to be here. I don't know how much longer we Christians are going to be on this earth before we're gone. So bringing it back around to because really Star Wars, Gina Carano, and all of that was kind of the final straw that broke the camel's back that made me say, okay, I've got to say something about this. I've been quiet long enough. For the love of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy has to go. She's got to go because she is kind of ruining Star Wars. Not that Star Wars is the end-all, be-all. I mean, it really is a religion to some. But as the old hymn says, you turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and the things of this world will go strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. And all of this has been showing me that Star Wars is kind of growing dim to me. But For the love of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy has to go. The cancel culture has to stop, or else nothing will be. It's like when they say, this is why we can't have good things. It's because someone's going to ruin it, right? Well, it's getting ruined. And we all know it. The fandom menace that they say, yeah. Cancel culture, beyond Star Wars, cancel culture has to stop, or else there won't be any America left. It'll just be America in name only, but it won't even actually be what America stands for. It makes me feel that America is reaching a critical mass where something is going to break. We must have freedom to speak and to live as we choose, as we attempt to live in peace with our fellow American, as we pursue life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Cancel culture is the latest tool to destroy our country from within. It's a violation of our human rights to life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Okay, we learn from our mistakes when we make them, yes, and we move on. There has to be forgiveness. There has to be grace. And from a personal standpoint, you and I can agree with that. The common, average, everyday citizen can agree with that. But those who are in power don't. They don't want healing. They don't want reconciliation. They want control. They want to enslave us. They do it by eroding our freedoms, 1 degree at a time. It's like boiling frogs. When you're going to cook frogs or boiling crabs or lobsters, you don't do it by putting them in a boiling hot pan of water. You do it by putting them in water that's comfortable, and then you slowly increase the temperature degree by degree, and they don't notice it, and they feel nice and comfortable until it gets to such a hot temperature that they're so relaxed, they're so tired, and they're so unable to get out. They're sapped by their environment. They can't get out even if they wanted to, and then they're boiled, they're cooked. Cancel culture and virtue signaling, it's sinful mankind's attempt to be arbiters of justice in a somewhat postmodern world where you do what you want and I'll do what I want and we'll both get along, but it's not even that anymore. We're beyond that. It's you need to conform to the agenda. You need to do what we say to do, or else you don't deserve to talk, speak, or live. It's oppression. It's evil. It is an attempt to play God. Gina Carano did happen to get into a good situation with Ben Shapiro in the Daily Wire. So, good for her. It's the light, the silver lining on the cloud. But what happened to her is happening to us. And it'll only get worse unless it's stopped. But I don't know if it will get stopped. See, this is cancel culture. This is beyond being conscious of your words and being sensitive to the feelings of others. It's beyond that. That's not really what it's about. That is simply a cover for a full-blown witch hunt to prosecute political and religious dissidents against the invading Marxist empire. These are dark times. But Jesus is the opposite of cancel culture. Jesus forgives. Jesus gives us hope for the future. Revival is necessary. There is no human solution to this because it's sinful humans that caused this problem in the first place. Well, among other things. But there is no human solution to fix all this. Revival is necessary. Pray for America. And like I said before, I am taking a risk in making this video. I'm taking my stand in my small way to say that this isn't right. Cancel culture has got to go. But I'm doing this video for Rush. I'm doing it for the love of Star Wars. I'm doing it for Jesus. Jesus will never cancel anyone who calls on him to be saved from sin and to be the Lord of their life. Call on him while you have the opportunity, because I don't know how much longer that window of opportunity will be. As always, may the Force be with us all.